watercolor landscapes. Now, if you look at this one that I have here, this I actually, when we were in class, we were coloring with watercolor. I actually used crayon for this. I figured not everybody has watercolor. A lot of people have crayons though at home. So if these, whatever you have, colored pencils, watercolors, paints, anything you use, you can get some great effects working with these. And if you remember, working with the landscape, we start out with 4 things. We need a horizon line. We work with the background, the midground, and the foreground to help build our landscapes. So for this drawing, we're gonna start with a line. I'm using a pencil. If you notice, it's a nice Smensel, chocolate. I think I got this last year from Mrs. Iodice, thank you. We are going to start with a line across the middle. I'm starting with a pencil. You also may want to use Sharpie as well to outline everything. And once we finished with the horizon line, we're going to build back to front. So I'm going to start with the background, and we began with these mountains. We went up, we did a zigzag line. Remember, we made an irregular zigzag pattern, so we're not going to repeat the same length and angle of lines. We're going to make some lines shorter, some lines longer as we go along. That's going to make it seem like it's not too much of a pattern, where it kind of looks a little more naturalistic that you might see. All right, the next thing we're going to do is put our ground in. One of the examples I gave, I have one here where I use these lines, diagonal lines, simple diagonal lines, just to draw across to put the ground in. We also use an example of this kind of S-curve line to create a road or a river or a path, whatever you want to refer to it as. And as we put this line in, we're going to make sure that we have 2 lines, and as we put each one in, the top of each line is going to start at a point on the horizon line, and then the lines are going to get gradually further and further apart as they come down. That's going to help create depth and space. I'm going to put some trees in. I'm going to put tiny lines up by the horizon line, and as I come farther down the horizon line, I'm going to make these lines a little bit bigger, bigger, and bigger, and that's going to help create the illusion of space as we go in and we put our trees in. All right, so now I have these lines, I have the path, I have the horizon line, and the mountains. Now we're going to add some texture. So for the trees, really simple to make these kind of evergreen trees. We just did some zigzaggy back and forth lines, kind of starting narrow at the top, widening at the bottom, kind of create the illusion, the look of a pine tree, Christmas tree, evergreen. And just going back and forth, giving it a little bit of texture. Not trying to make it too much of a perfect triangle. All right. And for this one all the way up here, down at the bottom, that actually goes off the page. This is in our foreground. I'm going to go back and forth, fill it in. That's going to be the biggest. And this one can actually go off the page. I'm going to go over all this in marker as well. Maybe do like a few zigzags. So right off the bat, you get the look of the trees. If you want to make like a river or something like that, maybe I'll do some squiggly lines that kind of go in the direction of the S-curve. Not too much. For the mountains, to add some depth and texture to the mountains. If you remember, what we did is we took a zigzaggy, kind of jagged line down from the top of each peak and did kind of a sideways V. I made that one maybe a little straight, very straight, but it doesn't have to be so straight. It can kind of go off at an angle and then come down and connect with the mountain that's next to it. And if you kind of keep doing it in this little repeated pattern, so to speak, you will get the look that these are actually three-dimensional. And then after we do this, I'm going to add some shading lines. Like that to create the look of the mountains. I'm also going to add a little bit of extra texture. Texture is kind of the look and feel of something. We want to make it look like these are rocky mountains, rocky in texture, kind of rough. So maybe I'll put a few extra lines going down, extending down the mountain. We have some lines in there for the river, maybe an extra shading line for each side of this river, let's say, that's facing us. And I'll have more examples that are posted. I think they're already posted now on the classroom page for Google. All right, so at this point, we are going to then, if you have a marker, pen, to go over the lines that you drew. Okay, so now at this point, we have our drawing done. If this is where you leave it right now, if you want to add some shading in with pencil up top for the sky, you can. You want to put sky, clouds, whatever else you want to draw, feel free to draw. If you want to go in with the color, you notice here I added some crayon. But remember what we talked about in class using color? We're going to color in the direction of the color wheel. We have our color wheel right here. If you notice, I have yellow at the bottom. That goes up to orange, to red, to purple. And that's how we were blending color in the direction of the color wheel. So if you want to make a kind of bluer sky, you can go from light blue to dark blue, then purple, red, whatever direction, whatever color blending you're gonna do. You can go the opposite way as well. You can go from blue to green to yellow to orange. You're gonna keep it in the direction and put the colors next to each other that are next to each other on the color wheel. All right. Okay, now if you're gonna add color to your work, I might have said if you had like paints and stuff and watercolor paints, watercolors, actually you probably don't want to use, depending if you're using, right now I have some regular kind of copy paper, printer paper. If you're using this paper, watercolors are probably not what you want to use because they're going to make the paper too wet and the paper is going to soak up all the water. If you have the heavier paper, you can use the watercolors, they'll work fine. If you just have crayons, I have crayons here, a whole bunch of them. you can use those or colored pencils. Those probably work better than markers because these you can blend a little bit. And if you remember, we're going to blend going in the same color. So for instance, here I have yellow to orange to red to purple, yellow, orange, red, purple. I can start off with any color. I can start off with blue, let's say, and lay in some of the blue color. I'm laying it in lightly. I'm not pressing hard on the crayon, colored pencil, whatever it is you're using. Just kind of letting it go, nice and easy. And if I do it that way, what's going to happen is if now I change up my colors, let's say I go from blue to purple to red, or blue to green to yellow, I will be able to do that. Now, where are my colors? I got a whole box of colors. I can't find any colors. Where's green? That was green. There's a green. Now I can take my green and color into the blue sky and add some color as well. Now this green, Smile Makers, probably got it at a restaurant when I took my kids there. Sometimes those restaurant crayons aren't the best. So if you can, and you do have Crayola, that's probably the way you want to go. But if you get like those crazy art ones from CVS or wherever it is, those are all right too. So go from, let's say, blue to green, and then to yellow. Here's another one, probably restaurant crayon, but that's okay. And color in, and you get a nice blend of sky to kind of go along with your picture. If you can add color, great. If not, that's fine too. Again, this is more of a working on how to create the illusion of space and depth in a drawing. And we use the horizon line. We added in the background the mountains, right? They're small in the distance as compared to this large tree up front, because this is in the foreground, and then here we have the midground. And that's really the basis for what our lesson is, and then including the adding color. And if you are to go in the same, if you're blending color, go in the direction of the color wheel. All right, and that's it. If you can, feel free to post, to share anything that you worked on, and I can put it up, and hopefully we all get to see some of the great work that we're able to do. All right.